Another month, another review. Over the past month, my usage of this POCO F5 Pro hasn't changed, but my opinion of it has shifted slightly since our last review. This review won't be lengthy, and just like our previous review video, it will cover the aspects you're interested in after more than 100 days of usage. And what better way to start than addressing the most frequently asked question about this phone: its battery life. Okay, so in our previous review, I mentioned that the 5160 mAh battery provided mediocre performance. It consistently offered 3 to 4 hours of screen time, but achieving 4 to 5 hours wasn't as straightforward as anticipated. For a phone with this battery capacity, we usually expect around 5 to 6 hours of screen time, possibly even more if the chipset and software are well optimized. As of today, the situation remains unchanged, but I believe I have identified the reason behind the lower screen time. It seems that there's a single prominent battery draining factor, and it's quite evident. The drain occurs during battery-intensive tasks, particularly heavy gaming that pushes the chipset to render 60 frames per second. Naturally, this kind of usage significantly impacts the phone's battery life. Initially, I suspected the display might be the culprit due to the F5 Pro's 1440p resolution, which demands more pixels. So, to test this, I switched the phone to 1080p resolution. Surprisingly, although the perceived quality difference is minimal, my battery life or screen time didn't improve. I still experienced 3 to 4 hours of screen time during regular use. I did contemplate switching to a 60Hz refresh rate, but I prefer the smooth and fast performance, so I stuck with a higher refresh rate. Nevertheless, I believe downgrading to 60Hz would conserve more battery than reducing to 1080p resolution. However, it's worth noting that this remains the only phone in its price range under 30,000 pesos that offers wireless charging at a maximum rate of 30 watts, and includes a former flagship chip, at least in the Philippines. So, if you have a desk or office setup where you can wirelessly charge your phone for around half an hour, you will likely find that your battery life remains sufficient throughout the day. On the topic of software, this phone continues to run the same version as last month. POCO has undisclosed policies regarding software patches and upgrades. Although they haven't committed to consistent long-term support, they typically provide 2 major software upgrades and send out security patches every 3 months based on their track record. The timing of these updates might vary though. Additionally, there's uncertainty about receiving a third major update in the phone's third year. If you're seeking extended software support, you might need to explore options like flashing custom ROMs. I wish I had the luxury to flash and review custom ROMs on devices, but these phones are expensive and I can't risk them breaking permanently. Since we're on the topic, I still have some minor issues with the F5 Pro. I'm not talking about MIUI being MIUI. In fact, after testing several phones outside POCO and Xiaomi, I do prefer the organization of features and settings. It's definitely sitting with Oppo's ColorOS and Vivo's FunTouch OS when it comes to minimalism, just second to Google Pixels. However, I'm still dealing with buggy Do Not Disturb mode wherein notifications still play a sound when things should be coming in quietly. Also, it's weird to see notifications coming in when I have already read and replied to a notification. What made it weird was that it was already 20 to 30 minutes late. As for the cameras, I like the videos I get here more than the photos. Despite the upgrades and all the technical capabilities of the hardware, the F5 Pro still isn't the best camera phone in its segment. In terms of feature availability like recording 4K with OIS and all that, yes, it may be best in providing all those features. But when it comes to hitting that shutter button, it's a different ballgame altogether. That's not to say that the quality of cameras is bad already, it's just that they are not the best if that's what you're looking for. However, the hardware and all the technical aspects of these cameras are more than enough to warrant the camera rating of a solid B+. They're not going to look great all the time, but at least they will look good most of the time. Now, I wouldn't say that the F5 Pro has gotten better since last month. I think I've adjusted to it and I'm slowly but surely liking this phone despite me saying disappointing things since our last review. I mean, it's fast, it charges fast, the screen looks good and large, and also the design. I've gotten used to the heftiness of the phone, and every time I pick it up to use, I'm reminded that this is a high-end device that's not to be taken lightly. If you're looking to get this phone today, I think it's definitely worth your money. But if your phone is still working fine today and you don't feel the need to upgrade, or you don't feel like this phone isn't worth upgrading to, looking forward, imagine getting slightly better performance with better thermal management, then probably at least 100 watts of fast charging, then slightly better cameras, more software tweaks and features. Sounds good? Then you better start saving money because that sounds very expensive. So that's it for this one. Drop a sub or like if you feel like supporting the channel. And as always, until the next one, stay safe.